Hello everyone, I'm Eric Queen and this is rendering in Revit using Mental Ray. Looks like not everyone has joined us yet, so I'm going to keep it a little slow from the beginning. This is session number 6, and there's a few housekeeping issues that I want to cover really briefly. One of which I'm kind of getting over a little bit of a cold, so I want to apologize for that. I was actually thinking about maybe canceling this class just because of that, but I'm gonna try to push through, and we're gonna see how this goes. If I get to a point where I can't go any further, we'll go ahead and stop it, and then we'll do another redo. But yeah, so there's that, and also I know I've switched around the topics quite a bit, and that's one of the the upsides of the beta is trying to work out the final class and get that as nailed down as possible. So first off, I just want to make sure everyone can see my screen. I'm going to do a switch through here into Revit really quickly and back. And raise your hand if you can't see my screen or hear me. Okay, looks like all's well there. It looks like I got a couple questions really quick. No voice. Okay, you can't hear my voice. Let me check on that 1 second. And that's from Terry. Let me unmute you really quick here, Terry. Okay, yeah, Terry.
It's working now.
It's working out. Okay, perfect, perfect. Okay, so everyone can see me. All's well on that. Another housekeeping issue. I ran into some computer problems last night with my PowerPoint presentation and my documentation, and I lost it. So I had to put it together quickly this morning. So it's going to be a little vague and stripped down. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to update it and I'll repost it. But as of now, this information is posted on the website, so you can go and download it if you haven't done that yet. And like I say, there's not going to be as much information in there as I would like, but I will update that this afternoon and repost it, so you can go check later this afternoon or this evening, and there'll be some a little bit more information in there. Another housekeeping issue. I got an email from one of the students about kind of the structure of the class, and he had a really good point. And when it comes to this final class, like I was saying in the past, I'm gonna increase the number of classes because this is just too much information to put into 8 sessions. And I think what I'm gonna do, and this is per his suggestion, which is a really great one, is I'm gonna do a 16-session class, and it's gonna be broken down into actually 2 classes. The first class is gonna be rendering and the second session is going to be rendering in Max, and you can sign up for one of them or individually one or the other, or you can sign up for both, and I'll talk to Will about that, and I'm sure there'll be some way to work out a discount if you enroll in both. But we're going to have 8 sessions of Revit and 8 sessions of Max, and I think that will work out a little bit better, so it won't be so stressed and so quick to run through everything. And really quick here too, I see there's a couple other questions. I'm going to make sure we're good. He mentions the use of an alpha channel as a means of including an image as a background within architectural rendering. Are you implying that the alpha channel is really a Photoshop layer that can superimpose upon an image generated in Revit? If not, would you please go into a little more depth on that in the alpha channel? Yes, actually, answer that question, and this is from Lewis. Basically, when you render out your image, if you render out to a format that has multiple channels, usually an image file, for example, a JPEG image, it has 3 channels. It's got your R, G, and B, your red, green, and blue channels, and that's it. But if you render out to a format, for example, Targa is the one that I use all the time. It's a great format. There's no compression, and it always gives you really good results. It's a 4 channel, and I think there's actually more that you can add as well. 4-channel format, which actually has your RGB, red, green, and blue, and also an alpha channel. And what that is that's embedded within the image. And how that works is anything that's complete black comes out transparent. So when you bring that image into Photoshop, you'll have an extra channel. And that channel you can, delete, you can hide it, and you can layer that onto a background. Sorry. You can layer that onto a background, and you can see your image with a background there, and without having to delete anything or paint anything out. And that's your alpha channel. And you know, it's really good that you just asked me that, because I wanted to touch on something else. Let me see what else we got here. Good here. Voice is fine. Should we be able to see something? Okay, this is from Mark. Um, can Mark? I'm gonna unmute you here. Where's my attendee list? Okay, Mark, you're unmuted. You can't see my screen here? Hello, Mark? Oh wait, there's two. No, there's only one Mark. Okay, I'm gonna mute you again. Questions. Okay, you see it. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm just on the will to play screen right now. This is all I'm at here. Okay, that's up for questions. It's a really great question that you asked that. Like I was saying, I talked to one of the students, and he recommended that, breaking it down, because of the fact that we're kind of rushing through things. And with that being the case, it's another housekeeping issue. I want to ask you guys this. Now, we have the option, because this is the beta, we can do whatever we want. So I want to make sure that you guys get as much as possible out of this class. So we have two options here, and I want to do kind of a voting system on this, and I want to see what you guys think. There's one or two things that can happen, and let me run through them before I ask a question, and I'm going to have you guys raise your hand and tell me what you think. But there's two things we can do. First is continue on the path that we're going. Now, we have 3 classes left. Actually, it's 2, but I'm going to add another class, because I know that there's a lot of information that we haven't been able to cover that I'd really like to cover in this class, and it's also a test run for the final class. So I'm willing to add classes if need be. You guys get a little freebie, and I get a little bit more comfortable about what kind of stuff we're going to be covering in the final class. So with that being the case, one thing we can do is we continue on our path, and the last 2 or 3 classes are going to be 3D Studio Max classes, and we're going to cover lighting, cameras, pro materials, render settings, and stuff like that in Max. But it's going to be a really broad stroke, and we're basically going to just touch the subject. And the other option is that we hop back into Revit, and we spend the last 3 classes getting in-depth into Revit, and I can show you all the remaining topics that you would want to know. Any questions you have, we can touch on them. We can get into, and that's why that question was important, rendering out to composite in a background in Photoshop. Get in a little bit more into Photoshop, and I can show you some more tips and techniques for creating textures and things like that, but just solely based in Revit. We can do that for the remaining classes. And I want to get your opinion on that, and I mean, I can go either way on this. So I'm gonna do a little poll here, and I'm gonna ask you guys, and I want you to raise your hand with which one that you think would be the best bet. Now, before I go any further, the final class is definitely going to be 8 sessions of Revit, 8 sessions of Max. You can do one or the other, both. It's up to you. But for this class, because we've only got 3 sessions remaining, and there are a lot of topics I'd like to cover still in Revit, let's do a little question poll. I don't know what you call it, and I'm going to have you guys raise your hand. So the first option is that we continue on our path, spend the last 3 classes working in 3D Studio Max, and do broad strokes on some stuff so you can touch on that information, or we do the Revit classes for the remaining and get more in depth in that. So those of you that want to do Max and continue on our path and finish our last 3 classes as really basically vague Max classes, raise your hand. Okay, we've got 1 hand raised. Okay, the other option is we go back into Revit, and I get more in depth on Revit topics. We get into a little bit of Photoshop stuff. I show you how to do compositing, and we run through it that direction. Now, if you want that to be the case, raise your hand. Okay, it looks like the majority of people want to do Revit, and honestly and truly, from my perspective, I think that's the way to go. Now, there was one person that had their hand raised for doing